Welcome to part two. I'm going to continue on from the last video and bring some detail to what I just said and start by talking about authority. Across the country, I learned that the personal experiences and wishes of the elected leaders during the past decade or more are often used to guide the work of those in the bureaucracy. And that should seem obvious, but here's an example. In the case of public libraries, the personal authority of the provincial leader was really key, and senior government workers expressed this time and time again. So here's a typical quote from one interviewee who said, "The context is really important, and there's an element of the leader's increasing interest in literacy. Literacy was the leader's initiative, which is actually quite distinct from a government initiative." So that's really a quick example of what I mean by the authority lens. By consistency lens, I'm referring particularly to a decision maker's wish to act in a way that appears consistent with their values or their organization's values or prior statements they've made. And then how this played out in terms of successful communication was particularly in noting the importance of ensuring elected officials understood the congruency between their party's campaign goals and the work of the library. And the senior government officials that I spoke to mentioned this really emphatically. And in the case where library stakeholders have not been successful in acquiring additional funding, it was really clearly stated that the repeated reference to a previous government's actions haven't assisted them in gaining support. So when I was collecting my data, provincial elections had just taken place in 2 of the 3 provinces. So this idea of alignment was really top of mind for those with extensive experience in government. They were really focused on learning the language and values of different parties and their respective leaders, and really consider this important to their day-to-day work. So one interview participant really stated aptly, she said, "There's a different emphasis on the syllable, but there's not that many new ideas out. Government does what government does. So of course you position it differently, you brand it differently, it's different at every level, but it's difficult to consider those decisions about what's the right balance given the priorities of government and where the money's got to go." Okay, so now on to the really important stuff. Far exceeding any other theme, the codes I developed to describe relationship building and its related tactic of influence called liking presented themselves as central to the work of those in the bureaucracy and to elected officials. So that's whether they were gathering information, disseminating information, or just networking in general. So this idea of talking up proposals informally increased its chances of being accepted in every instance. So here's a quote from a senior government official that really illustrates this well. He said, "This was all based on building personal relationships with people. When I first came to this province, I went and talked to all the support people, all the budget people. I had a relationship with those people for 20 plus years, and they had my back. When I shifted to libraries, it was no problem. They would see opportunities before I would in terms of the money and give me a heads up." Another felt that he developed a significant network that would be useful to libraries and said it a little differently. He said, "I knew people in the system. There were very few offices that I couldn't simply pick up the phone and say, gee, what's going on? I didn't need to know about libraries, but I did need to know about the inner workings of government, how decisions would be made, and how it would capture people's attention. So I was busy picking up the phone, calling my contacts in education, health, children, family development, Aboriginal relations, economic development, all of those places, talking about the importance of libraries to each of their files." And here's just one more quote, because I really want to emphasize how important this concept is, and this how this sense of maintaining a strong network extends through to the elected level as well. One of the elected politicians noted to me that a local union person came to see me about a potential partnership between our department and the union on a Books for Babies program. And so, I kind of like that. He and I are old friends from a different battle, and again, I'm inclined to do the partnership through them. Okay, I'm going to take another quick break here, and then I'll move on to the next video of my talk, so stay tuned.